The nurses outside my hospital room spoke Spanish about pulling the plug and thought I was unconscious. The motorcycle accident happened on a Thursday afternoon in early November when a delivery truck ran a red light at the intersection of 5th and Madison. I was heading home from my shift at the bookstore, taking my usual route through downtown Portland, when the truck's front bumper caught my rear wheel and sent me flying across 2 lanes of traffic. My helmet cracked against the pavement hard enough to split it down the middle, and the last thing I remember before everything went dark was the sound of tires squealing and someone screaming. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in what felt like a fog, unable to move or open my eyes but vaguely aware of voices around me and the steady beeping of machines. My name is Daniel Ortega, and I spent 11 days in what doctors called a minimally conscious state, while hospital staff discussed ending my life in Spanish right outside my room, completely unaware that I understood every single word they were saying. The first few days after the accident were a complete blank, just darkness and occasional flashes of sensation that might have been real or might have been dreams. According to the medical records I read later, I was brought into Providence Memorial Hospital with severe head trauma, 3 broken ribs, a fractured collarbone, and internal bleeding that required emergency surgery. The neurosurgeon, Dr. Whitmore, induced a medical coma to reduce brain swelling and give my body time to stabilize. For 72 hours I was completely under, hooked up to a ventilator and surrounded by machines monitoring every function. My father flew in from San Diego the day after the accident and barely left my bedside, while my younger sister Lucia drove up from Eugene and spent hours reading to me even though I couldn't respond. They were told the first week would be critical, that my brain activity was present but minimal, and that there was no way to know if I'd wake up or what condition I'd be in if I did. On day 4, they started reducing the sedation to see if I'd regain consciousness on my own. That's when things got complicated, because I didn't wake up the way they expected. I could hear sounds and feel sensations, but I couldn't open my eyes or move any part of my body. It was like being trapped inside a broken machine, aware of everything happening around me, but unable to signal that I was actually there. The medical term for it is locked-in syndrome, though the doctors didn't realize that's what was happening at first. They assumed I was still deeply unconscious based on my lack of response to stimuli, even though inside my head I was screaming at them to notice I was awake. The first clear memory I have after the accident was hearing my father's voice close to my ear, speaking in English about how strong I was and how I needed to fight. His hand was holding mine, squeezing gently, and I tried with everything I had to squeeze back, but my fingers wouldn't respond to the commands my brain was sending. Dr. Whitmore came by that evening to check on me and explained to my father that my Glasgow Coma Scale score was still very low, indicating minimal brain function. He said the next few days would show whether the swelling had caused permanent damage or if I might gradually improve. I wanted to scream that I could hear him, that I understood every word, but my body remained completely unresponsive. After he left, I heard my father crying quietly beside my bed, and the sound of his grief was worse than any physical pain from my injuries. Lucia arrived shortly after and started reading from 100 Years of Solitude in Spanish, the way our grandmother used to read to us when we were kids. Her voice was soothing and familiar, and I focused on the words, trying to use them as an anchor to stay present instead of drifting back into the fog. She read for almost an hour before a nurse came in to check my vitals and told her visiting hours were ending soon. The nursing staff rotated in 3 shifts, and most of them were professional and kind when they came to turn me or adjust my IV or check the machines. But there were 2 nurses on the night shift who spoke Spanish to each other while they worked, clearly assuming that the unconscious white guy in the bed couldn't understand them. I heard them for the first time on my 5th night in the ICU, their voices carrying from the hallway outside my room as they discussed their patient assignments. One of them, whose voice was higher and younger sounding, complained about having to deal with the vegetable in room 412. That's what she called me, a vegetable. The other nurse, older with a raspier voice, laughed and said, "At least vegetables don't complain or ring the call button every 5 minutes." Their casual cruelty shocked me, but I couldn't do anything except lie there and listen as they continued their conversation just outside my door. The younger nurse, I later learned her name was Carmen from her badge when she leaned over me, came in to adjust my feeding tube and spoke to her colleague in rapid Spanish about how it was a waste of resources keeping people like me alive when the outcome was probably going to be death or permanent vegetation anyway. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was discussing the weather, while her hands efficiently checked the tube placement and recorded numbers on my chart. The older nurse, whose badge read loose, agreed and mentioned that the family was in denial about the prognosis, that they needed to accept he wasn't coming back and let nature take its course. I felt a surge of rage so intense that I tried again to move, to open my eyes, to do anything that would show them I was aware. Things only got worse after that.